So I'm Boris Mann, CEO and co-founder of Fission, and I'm going to talk to you about Fission, the company, and how we got here, and the Webnative SDK, which is our main product today. So Brooke, Fission CTO, my co-founder, and I set out and said, apps are too damn hard. We've been working in the Ethereum space in the early days, and people were learning how to do smart contracts, and it was all new. It was new programming languages, lots of things that had to be learned. And what we found is that people still fell down just on the app side. Here was this kind of backend as a service, but then there was this JavaScript tooling, and in general, front-end developers had to become full-stack developers. And do DevOps. And from our experience in the emerging technologies around distributed systems, around cryptography, and some of these modes, we said, we think we can take some of these techniques and make it easier for developers. So that was our plan, is to make these far edge apps, and that we would hand front-end developers an entire stack in the front end of identity, data, and compute. Let's make it more secure and private. That's hard to get right. Let's do passwordless logins and end-to-end encryption. Very hard for developers to take in any system. If you go browsing in the Amazon console, you're basically forced to pick and choose, plug things together. There's a good analogy that says you're trying to build a house, and going to the Amazon console is like wheeling into Home Depot, and you hope that the parts you put together correctly, that they don't cost you too much, and they're secure end-to-end. We feel it's very important to not do account lock-in, so we used decentralized identifiers as the basis for account identifiers. A user could bring their own. It was central to the user rather than being managed by a server somewhere, and portable between systems. Also, let's make user data portable. Use IPFS for content addressing. We were IPFS pilled very early on and believe that content addressing is a sustaining innovation. It's amazing. It actually is interplanetary. And then this other thing, as we saw serverless becoming the dominant thing that eventually is going to eat everything. I've been building open source software for a long time. We've been building LAMP stack software for 30, 40 years. I think it's basically over because it's not decoupled enough, and the computation cycle of taking down the transaction that we see in everything from serverless to smart contracts is the kind of thing that you get scale out of, and we need to rebuild things in this serverless model, but we can't let it get locked up in one of 3 US corporations that are currently controlling the future of computing. And then we realized that some of the protocols had not been invented yet, and a lot of stuff didn't work. And so we pivoted for a couple of years to pop down a layer to make protocols, because the DX and UX wasn't there out of the box. The first thing that we did, we said IPFS is great, but we've got to store private data on it. How do we do that? Well, we'll encrypt it. If you do encryption, you need identity and key management. So UCAN solves the problem of decentralized auth based on DIDs. Kind of like OAuth at the beginning of Web 2 needed to be invented to securely integrate between systems. That's where UCAN sits in a lot of different ways. It helps us pass around keys and give access and differential access to WinFS. So Daniel mentioned a file system. We have built and defined a standard, a protocol for a second file system that sits on top of IPFS. It's end-to-end encrypted, it's encrypted at rest, and it has capabilities, versioning, and a few other features in it. We have other protocols in the hopper, like Carpool, Dialog, a database system, and some of you may have seen some of the recent interest in IPVM. And IPVM is going to design to fit that serverless use case, where we can displace Amazon Lambda and similar systems by running WASM. WASM is the thing that Fission will focus on in this area. Research make a spec, so write down the rules, not with a formal centralized entity, but with other people in the community who are working on it. Make a code implementation, and then compose that library into a product. Something that I want to start seeing more people think about is the right balance towards a Web 2 style, I'm just going to build my company, to an open source style where we can work on shared libraries, we can pool engineering time. There might be things like end-to-end tests or other things that we collaborate on together rather than only doing them on our own. So I invite all of you, there's a large company that says it's customer obsessed. Maybe we can get a little more ecosystem obsessed. So research graduates to ecosystem working groups. These are people who are writing actual code, not architecture astronauts. It's people coming together on community calls, using a GitHub repo to maintain a spec, versioning it, and then implementing that code or solving certain problems, use cases, and say, hey, you know what, I think this is a real use case, this is a problem, what works for you, and going through that. And then having separate implementations. I've come to the realization, I have a long background in open source, that even more valuable than any chunk of library code that you've written is in fact a shared spec, because then someone else can write an interoperable piece of code rather than just having an implementation that you need to be bug compatible with. UCAN is being used by folks like Web3 Storage and NewSphere. NewSphere recently was one of the impact grant recipients. Actually, maybe I need to put Capulun in that area as well. There's a few other folks like Blue Sky who are looking at pieces of UCAN and we've worked very closely with, and we hope to see interop with. The Webnative file system is being looked at or will actively be implemented in by N0, Capulun, Web Recorder, IPFS, and Filecoin, and we're constantly having more discussions of people being interested in solving this and interoperating. And we make fun mascots. If you write an implementation of any of our specs, I will custom design you an illustration that you get to pick, and I will send you as many stickers as you want. Yeah. And now we come to all of that protocol stuff, which we compose into a product. Web3 Storage has built other products with it. Now we're back to only being able to do the thing that we wanted to do at the beginning after we've gone through protocol land. Let's empower a front-end dev to make entire apps without having to become a full-stack developer and without DevOps for various versions of without. Works in a browser, including mobile. It is very important for me that this community internalizes that if our stuff doesn't work on mobile, we are not serving humanity. Right? No browser extensions. Lots of interesting stuff happening in a lot of different ecosystems with browser extensions. We don't get to hundreds of millions with browser extensions. We might get there with native mobile apps. Local first is an interesting new capability that I think IPFS and content addressing can really shine at. I think of things like World of Warcraft using BitTorrent. What? BitTorrent? It saved them a ton of money in bandwidth costs because all the people downloading updates shared that with them. Some of these same things can happen with edge apps, and we're going to start being ready to put this into native mobile apps and desktops and solve problems in this area. And now I'm going to show you an app template and do a live demo. So this is UCAN, it's WinFS. It's put together in a JavaScript template that developers can use to build these types of applications. It features both public and private files and device linking. Basically what we're going to do here is the Web Crypto API is a browser API that we rely on, and that's how we're able to do what we do without a browser extension. This was the first thing to figure out. How do you do it? How do you secure something? So the Web Crypto API is everywhere, including on mobile browsers, and it keeps a non-exportable private key inside the browser. So not exposed where it can be read by any JavaScript program or browser extension or anything else. So that's what roots us to this device and what we derive a DID from. You know, this says connect. I'm not sure if we're going to use portable data and user local identities, what it should say, because it's not really log in. Other communities say things like connect wallet. I've seen some communities that say the word sync. There's active areas of research that we have to do more here. So we click connect, and I can create a new account or I have an existing account. I'm going to create a brand new one. And good old Boris 2022 1029. All right, I did this after midnight. 29B. Oh yeah, there's developer laughter in the room. Amazing. So I'm going to hit register, initializing file system. So this is actually booting up a JS IPFS node in the browser. Shout out to the maintainer over here. Thank you very much. We've had a lot of people say, like, look under their computer, check their network traffic, and they're like, how this work? Content addressing is pretty magical. So it's created an account. It's instantiated a WinFS file system in the background. Wait, what's my password? It uses public key cryptography. All of this needs wording help. Continue. It's now saying, you know, like literally your account only lives on this device. You've handshaked with some persistent services that Fission runs, but your account is just here. So it's saying, you know, you should create a backup device. I'll click on it, and it'll say, connect to backup device. So if any of you scan this, we could actually handshake into your device. We're not going to do that. There's ways to, and now we're like, you really should back this up if you don't want to lose your stuff, right? So this is public key cryptography, so some of this key management stuff is a little hard. YOLO, I'll risk just one device for now. Depending on the app you're building, as an app developer, we wanted to show some flows, including if you think right back, there was a check mark that says, this is a shared computer. So those are use cases that we can do with UCAN to say, this account will live here for an hour or for half an hour. And then that UCAN token will actually automatically expire. So we can serve those use cases over time as well, which is pretty interesting. I've got a username. It's bugging me that backup is recommended, but I'm going to just go ahead and do a photo gallery demo. So this is the public side. I'm going to go ahead and click upload. And I'll go into here. And let's pick this. It's pretty fast because it's just doing it locally. It's added it to the local JS IPFS node, and in the background, it's communicating with Fission servers to persist it. I can now click on View on IPFS. And I'm actually connected over my phone because the Wi-Fi here isn't very good. That is coming off of, if you can see the URI, that's coming off of Fission's gateway server there. This is on IPFS. Yay. Please clap. Now I'll go ahead and put something on the private side. Let's use Wally the Wallet Off mascot. Again, same thing. It's locally encrypted. I've got the local keys, encryption keys, so I can see it and read it. We haven't fixed the screenshot problem. If I click View on IPFS, it'll actually give me an error because we need to update this template, and it's an encrypted blob that you couldn't read anyway. The real test would be connecting to a second device, proving that you could read it in that second device, even though it's an encrypted blob. We are working on some other key management things, including, so this looks like the exact same thing, where instead of having this local account, what you can do is hit connect. And in fact, look at that beautiful UCAN being signed by your MetaMask Ethereum browser. It's now, I'm keeping the decryption key in part of this chain in MetaMask and being asked to decrypt it. And I have access to a synced file system. I've used this before on other machines. Here is the UCAN website screenshot. And here's a fun photo of an advisor of Fission, Randall. And this is a lovely screenshot that he wouldn't want shared, which is why we've put it in the private side of our system. Not quite ready to be released. Needs some more documentation and a few other things like that. The code is there. You're welcome to look at it. You're welcome to start hacking on it. It's all open source and ready for you all to play with. We really need to work on interop. We're very small compared to the entire Web 2 centralized world. We have no choice but to interop, and we need to do more of it. Blockchains talk a lot about this a lot because a bunch of stuff is just completely public data. That's not ideal either. We do need encrypted data. We need decentralized edge apps to work with blockchains to extend the utility and usability, to do things like add encryption, large file storage, and computation that doesn't make sense to do. The more we work on many interoperable accounts and portable data equals a bigger Web3 universe. We can work together because all of this stuff is central to the user. If we each build our own encryption scheme, we've just replicated Web 2 silos, which is why we have to work on protocols and standards. There are a ton of UX challenges. If someone has a Web3 storage account and they come to something that was built on the Webnative stack, they already have an account. How do we tell them what to type in? This is harder than it sounds, and there's some interesting challenges around this. How do we tell people that their data isn't locked in a silo, that they're bringing their own and can reuse it? So this is an XKCD that Brooke sent me, and I put into the talk this morning. It says, my new secure texting app only allows people named Alice to send messages to people named Bob. Clearly, this is an anti-pattern. We need to work together. A few future directions that I'll speed run through. I showcased wallet auth. So instead of managing keys with Webnative, use any blockchain account. Right now, proof of concept supporting Ethereum and EVM chains on MetaMask. Filecoin will be next. We can build a Web3 iCloud. Not a joke. This is a real thing. We can do it. There are literally no blockers to this. Asterisks other than standards and interop. It also gets all of us building on IPFS, 50 million-ish existing accounts. Not only with browser extensions, there's things like Wallet Connect that lets us use mobile apps as well. 50 million accounts is cool. You know what's really cool? 500 million accounts. Passkeys is a new spec. It's in iOS 16.1. And basically, Apple iOS, Mac OS, Google Android and Chrome, Microsoft, Amazon are all going to support this. It's from the FIDO Alliance. And they're like, we really should kill passwords. Amazing. There are a ton of people outside the Web3 community who are aligned in using cryptography to kill passwords. We're on the same team. So the primary use case for passkeys is replacing the passwords as the first primary factor for account authentication. It's a really great user experience for passwordless logins, protected by OS level security. This is on the roadmap. We'll work on it with the UCAN crew, so Web3 Storage and others will be able to use this, and we'll integrate it in a Webnative so that any developer can easily offer passwordless, passkey-based authentication. I'm very excited about this because it has the potential to solve certain aspects of key management in a very user-friendly way. To give you an idea, it was amazing to hear Jay Chris talk about UCAN. I saw the Cathedral and Bazaar again. So I mentioned before, UCAN takes authentication outside of a single siloized system and means that you can remix arbitrary systems, just like you're picking and choosing from the Amazon console, we can now do this on the open web if you can enable your app. Let that sink in. We literally are on the way to building a suite of services that interoperate from different companies. Yay. Fission intends to work with Web3 storage so that instead of having a single integrated system where Fission does all the persistence, you'll be able to put in your Web3 storage credentials. And there's a lot of ways to mix and match that. Bring your own, as long as you can enable it. You'll be able to plug that into Webnative SDK. PR's welcome. Doing the login system, because we're using compatible DID-based accounts, people won't constantly have to create new accounts. They can recreate them. All of a sudden, we've got sets of apps where both the data and the accounts are portable. That new user sign up is really hard. What if it's like, right? What if it's like, can I get access to your storage? We do this already on desktop and phones. Web3 storage doesn't do anything with DNS updates. Fission does. Web3 storage can authenticate with UCAN and take advantage of Fission's naming services. We've created new features for both companies, both entities, both pieces of software in a very interesting way. Any of you, again, not just Fission, could create a wholesale account on Web3 storage, either as a developer with a single app, which is their main use case, or a service provider writing tooling. That is amazing. Let's start building the Amazon of Web3. Thank you, Web3 storage. I mentioned at the beginning, identity and access management is what controls the hyperclouds. They keep building more services, but you're inside the walls of that. With UCAN, we have the opportunity to build something that is in fact better than that. You can use the same system, whatever the arbitrary systems are. You can have components of your own system that you talk to, but that's the same as talking to a quote-unquote third-party system. I'll hand wave over the billing and business agreements that you still need to do. But it means services on the open web being remixed and combined. The other thing with those other systems is that you have to pre-provision. We've all had this experience as developers. You go somewhere, you create a new account, you get a developer token, and then you have to come back and can do your system. And also you have to figure out, oh shit, I have to run a server because I can't put secrets in the front end. You can put secrets in the front end because you're sending signed messages with UCAN, and that's what you're authorizing it to. So instead of the UCAN connection checking if someone is allowed to have access, they can talk to storage directly because it's signed and it's been delegated from your wholesale account. There's an interesting quote, I'll share the link later. In the next 10 to 20 years, I believe we will see a massive disruption in the developer-led landscape driven by the emergence of autonomous software development. You don't get services spinning up other services with pre-provisioning. You need something like UCAN of signed cryptographic tokens to have one AI system talk to another AI system, talk to an ML system. Oh shit, are we creating Skynet? Maybe we'll work on it. Thank you very much. My name is Boris Mann. Please check out Fission. We've got some stickers at the front. Let's build Web3 interoperability together.